Welcome all to Bullseye Gyan session number 2. Today we have a very renowned conveyancer, Mr. Vikas Sood from Let's Settle Conveyancing. Welcome, Vikas.
Thank you, Jaswinderji. Thank you.
Vikasji, can you please give us a brief introduction about yourself and also about Let's Settle Conveyancing, please?
Yes, of course. Um, so myself, Vikas Sood, I am the running my own practice. Let's Settle Conveyancing. So we are the conveyancer based in Victoria. We cover all over Victoria. So anywhere in Victoria, if you're buying, we can assist you with the conveyancing process. We have been in the industry for last 9 years and 6 years with our own firm. And we have dealt with number of transactions from residential to commercial, and we can make sure that we can guide you properly through your property transaction.
Thank you. Vikasji, for the broader audience, can you tell them in layman's language what is a conveyancer and what is their role in a complete property transaction as a buyer?
Of course, and especially as a buyer, I mean, like as a conveyancer, you act for vendor and buyers. But when it comes to the buyers, it is very important because the in Victoria, the buyers are at much more risk than vendors because the reason is very simple because the contract is drafted by the vendor side and they put their conditions prior to, and that conditions are favorable to the vendor. Now, these conditions protect the vendor in many more circumstances. Um, and when we talk about the law as well, the law also somehow, somewhat favors the vendor a little bit more. Um, so, as a buyer, it is very important that you have the right guidance from the very start. But as a conveyancer for the buyer, what we do is we will review the contract, we'll talk to the clients, we will guide them on their questions, um, their legal their legal understanding of the contract, their what they need to do during the transaction, how they will be proceeding, and the conditions specifically that we look at the contract, we look at the red flags, what the client wants if you're buying as a developer or as an investor, or if you're buying as a principal place of residence or a first home. It is important that we look at it because the way we look at the property or the contract will be different for what we're looking at from a developer perspective or from the first home buyer's perspective. So that's what we do. We'll look at the contract, we'll look at the section 32, we'll pick up any red flags or the point of interest, which you should be at least aware of, even if it does not make any difference in your buying, if you really want to buy it or not. But it definitely something that you should be aware of. For example, like easements and stuff like that. Easements are generally not a big problem. A lot of the buyers do think that the easements can be a problem. It's usually not, unless you are a developer. If you are developing the land, you want to do 2 3 unit constructions on it, then easement can be a problem depending upon where the easement is. So these kind of things we look at from the both perspective, whether you are living in the property or whether you're developing the property, and looking at the conditions of the contract. Now, um, if I go more into details, there are two things. There's Section 32 and there's contract of sale. Now, in a basic terms, Section 32 is also called a vendor statement, which is basically saying that the vendor is making a statement about the property where the vendor will disclose the information regarding the planning, the zoning, any notices issued against the property, any permits they have worked they have done to the property, all this kind of stuff. Now, the contract is the terms of the transaction. So you're buying a property. Now, this transaction have certain terms. So the terms such as how much you're buying it for, when is the settlement date, when will you pay the deposit, what conditions to apply, for example, subject to finance, building and pest inspections, and things like that. So we will review the conditions that are favorable to, which are unfair. We'll point it out to you. We can probably negotiate on them, and we can add your own conditions like finance, building and pest, appliances, and things like that.
Right, got it. So a very long, detailed answer about what is the conveyancer's role, while buying a property in Victoria? Because we have a few people who are not Australian residents but are thinking of moving to Melbourne from New Zealand, or have come to Australia but are New Zealand citizens. Can you only for them tell us about what is the prerequisites for them before they buy a property in Victoria, and what additional checks that you have to do for them, please?
Okay, the first thing about the thought that comes to your mind is you're a New Zealand citizen. That means you can definitely buy in Australia. You are considered an Australian citizen as well, just in terms, because you have an Australian New Zealand passport. In somewhat, it is true, but not always. The reason why is that if you are a New Zealand citizen and you are currently present in Australia, working, paying taxes, or a permanent resident in Australia, then yes, you have all the rights of an Australian citizen. You can buy the property, and there is no additional stamp duty, or you can claim your first home buyer's grant or things like that. But you have to be present in Australia. Okay, you have to be permanent resident, um, or need to have a special category visa. If you have that, yeah, definitely you can buy it, no problem at all, just as an Australian citizen. However, if you are residing in New Zealand, you are a New Zealand citizen, and if you buy in Australia, you are treated as a foreign investor. That means you will be liable to pay the additional stamp duty, which is about 8% additional stamp duty on top of the normal stamp duty. So if you are buying, this is the some things you have to remember, that you have to be present during the transaction. You have to be working here or paying taxes, then you can definitely buy it. The other things from the contract perspective, if you look at it, there's one more important things that I would like to point out, which I have seen during the transactions dealing with the people who are from New Zealand who have moved to Australia, is one thing is the building inspection. Now, in New Zealand, if I understand correctly, I think the law is that when vendor is selling the property, any defects that they found during the inspection, the vendor will fix it. Okay, so they fix the defects and they give or transfer the property to the buyer in a good conditions with all the defects rectified and all. However, in Victoria, it is not like that. Okay, so when you're buying and you have a contract subject to building inspection, only the major structural defects are covered, which allows you the right to pull out of the contract if there are structural issues. If there are no structural issues, there could be other issues like minor defects or major defects, which are non-structural by nature. Those defects, you have to accept it as is. So vendor is not obligated to fix those defects. So that means it will become your responsibility either to fix it or leave it, if it is not of a major concern, but you're buying it as is. So that's one thing that you will find probably very different when a New Zealand person will come and buy here. If they have bought property there, this is the biggest difference they will find. So my advice is definitely to talk to your legal rep, a conveyancer, or a solicitor. If you want to go ahead with them, you have to talk to them and get the right advice and start on the right note.
Good. Cool. Thank you. Again, a very long, detailed answer. Thank you for that. This was for our people who are trying to buy a property in Australia who are probably New Zealand citizens. Let's move on to the next type of property, because the commercial. What kind of checks does a conveyancer recommend for a purchaser who's trying to buy a commercial property?
Okay, generally the commercial property, if you look at it, the couple of things that you should be aware of is the strata. Most of the commercial properties will have some sort of strata or a common property, so there is a owners corporation there. So strata, body corporate, owners corporation, one and the same thing. Yeah. So one thing you have to look at it is that your liabilities for the lot and the kind of your property, where your property is located, what kind of rights you have under the strata, what kind of obligations such as the levies and all that, and how much the levies are. And sometimes, like for example, you're buying in a shopping center or something like that, in a bigger shopping strip, the levies can be quite high. Now, with that levies, whether it is considering the amount of rent you're gonna get back, is it's the numbers that you have to do, and based on that, that will determine that if the property is going to be profitable for you as well. With the levies, with the liabilities, and with the amount you have spent on top of that, what you're getting back in return as a rent. That is one major thing that you have to look at. And of course, that goes without saying that you have to do the your due diligence on the area as well. Same as we do it at the residential properties, we have to, if you're buying, because most of the commercial properties are for investment purpose and you want to rent it out. So how the market going there, what kind of rent you're getting, and how much is the need of that property, are there, what kind of vacancy rates are there, if you are able to secure a tenant quickly or not. These kind of things that you have to look at when you are buying a commercial property, from my perspective.
Got it. Cool. Right. So I can come to a conclusion which can be short and sweet as follows. Your conveyancer is your legal guardian in a property purchase transaction. It is important to get your conveyancer involved well before you buy the property. Get the Section 32 evaluated with them before you sign the contract of sale. Understand your legal obligations, understand your terms and conditions, understand what is your contract subject to and how much time you have for it. And third, the conveyancer's role is not only at the time of contract of sale, but right up to settlement, even when the settlement adjustments, etc., have to be done. These are my three conclusions, and one fourth conclusion: for every state, the conveyancing laws are different. Like you mentioned, Victoria has its own set of laws. Thus, it is important that you are checking that your conveyancer is approved and what state he is working in, so that you can get the right conveyancer engaged. Any more concluding points from yourself, Vikas ji, and tell our viewers how do they get in touch with Vikas and Let's Settle Conveyancing also.
Yeah, of course, definitely. As you said, most of things are the same. The conclusion is to get the right advice from the very start. Okay, if you are starting on a journey, you're buying a property, you have to have the right professionals with you from the very start. Now, it starts with the buyer's agent, mortgage brokers, your accountant or financial planners, and along with the conveyancers. Okay, now, with the brokers, we all know that, we go through them, we get the loan approved, we understand what our borrowing capacity is. Because if we have the borrowing capacity, that is when we start looking for the properties, then engaging a buyer agent if you want one, which can guide you on finding the right property, especially interstate if you are not able to do it. And then financial planners in or accountants in some cases as well, if you're running your own business, if you're working on APNs and things like that, and how to systematically put that property with your borrowing capacity, whether you want to buy it on a personal name or whether you want to go through the trust. So all these things are important. And then going to the conveyancer or your legal rep from the very early start. Now, a lot of the people don't understand that the conveyancers, they don't. Most of the people you will come across, especially the first term buyers or things like that, they're not aware that they need a conveyancer or who the conveyancer is. Now, the conveyancer is the one person you're gonna pay the fees anyhow, regardless. You're gonna need a conveyancer regardless, whether you engage it right now or you can engage it at the right. And we have clients coming, at the very end of the transaction. They bought a land 2 years ago. Now the settlement is coming. Now they're looking for a conveyancer. They never had a conveyancer before. So the fees they're gonna pay it again. They're gonna pay the fees anyhow. So why not have the conveyancer from the very start, and they can guide you on the journey. They can look at the contract. They can give you the right guidance and advice. And with the right advice, you can put your conditions in, and you can set on the right path. So it is very important that you have all the professional lined up before you start on your property journey, and this will help make your transaction much more smoother. Now, if you want to connect with me, if you need any have any questions or if you need any guidance, yeah, feel free to get in touch with me. So my company's name is Let's Settle Conveyancing. You can reach out to me on 0433 563 568. Now I repeat, it's 0433 563 568, or you can email at admin at let's settle.com.au. Now, let's settle with 2S. You can connect to us via email or phone call. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vikas ji, and thank you for pulling out time from your busy schedule.
Not a
Thank
problem.
you.
Thank you, Jaswinder ji. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.